All right, good morning. We are live on YouTube, but we're going to bring in Facebook and Twitter as well. That's Atlanta Falcons fans on All Falcons and All Falcons ATL on the old Twix machine. So hang tight while those come in. We'll get live and we'll get started here. Good morning, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast, Wednesday morning edition, following a Victory Monday edition on Monday. I'm your host, Scott Kennedy. This guy over here, you might remember him. He's back. This is Nick Kendall. He was traveling all last week, so we did solo shows as he and I worked out our travel schedules. But he's back now, so we can talk, get a little different perspective. West Coast, South Coast, that's me. He's over in Seattle. We are coast to coast with your football coverage. So welcome in, everybody. Welcome back, Nick.
Yeah, thanks you. Thank you for holding down the fort. Watching the Falcons game in the airport the day after, and excited to get into it. We'll talk a little Tennessee as well. And thank you for, being able to run solo for a little bit. I know that that's never the easiest. You don't have the natural pauses. You can't drink as much coffee during the show either. That's always tough. So yeah, good to be back. Good to see an Atlanta team that feels like they are close to taking off here.
Yeah, you said something to me that was pretty interesting yesterday when we were talking about Atlanta and the feeling that you get for this team. Why don't you go ahead and tell, Falcons country here what you told me yesterday about your thoughts on the trajectory of where this team is going?
I just feel like they're going to have a game coming up here where they're going to explode on somebody. They left so many points in the field. They're moving the ball well. The defense is playing well. They just haven't put it all together in one game, but that's coming. At some point, there's going to be a game where the special teams plays exactly right. You're putting the ball in the end zone, in the red zone. Yeah, the turnovers are limited, and you're going to beat a team by 30. I'm not sure who it's going to be. You have a pretty easy schedule coming up, but I think the Falcons are very close to playing a complete game. Now, playing that complete game consistency is the difference between, making the playoffs and how far you can go. But the pieces are going to come together here pretty soon in one game, and I think it's going to be an explosive output.
Yeah, you look at the last 3 games for Atlanta and just go look at, and in fact, even the Jacksonville Jaguars won. It was 23-7, but Jacksonville only went for 300 total yards in that game, and Atlanta went for 287, 3 turnovers. You go to Houston Texans, and we talked about that was a big win, and some folks kind of came in, some Texas fans were kind of poo-pooing that one, oh yeah, great, you beat us up, we stink. Like, no, you really don't. You're a pretty good team. But someone took issue with the fact that I said they dominated that game. Then why'd you need a Herculean effort to come back and win it? Well, because of turnovers. Again, total yards, 447 to 313. In the NFL, that's dominating. Here's the one that just kicks you in the nards. 402 total yards against the Washington Commanders, and your defense held them to 193 yards. You outgained them 2-1. Oh, yeah, 3 turnovers. Last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 401 yards to 329. You got 2 turnovers. That's probably the way you win because you gave up, let's hear it again, folks, 3 turnovers. The Atlanta Falcons turnover margin, I'm going to have to just scroll all the way down the bottom because they got to be last. Not last. They are, because the Las Vegas Raiders are -10. They are tied with the Patriots with -7 at second to last. So they're tied for 30th and 31st in turnover margin. This could be the game where they explode. The Tennessee Titans, we've said they're overlooked a lot. This year, they're not very good, Nick.
Yeah, no, they are really, really poor. Malik Willis does not look like the answer there. Traylon Burks has not really stepped up into the spot post A.J. Brown, and now they're trading away Kevin Byard, who's been the heart of that defense for a number of years. They're not a very good team. I wouldn't be shocked at all if they end up picking top 3 when it comes down to it. When we are talking in April, they are one of the. Are they 2-4 right now? They're one of the teams
2-4 coming off a bye week.
Yeah, I mean they're sniffing a top 3 pick with Bears sitting there at 2-5 with the 3rd pick. They're one of the heap of 2-4 teams of the Packers, the Chargers, and the Titans. So yeah, not a good team so far this season. I kind of feel bad for Vrabel because he's done pretty well with lesser rosters, but I mean, looking over the roster outside of Jeffrey Simmons, who are the difference makers? I just do not see them on that squad.
If they make a change, Vrabel won't be out of work for long.
No.
That's a promise. He'll get another job quickly. Some of the things we want to get into today, we'll talk a little transaction. Falcons made a move, signed someone to their 53. We'll hit on that for just a moment. We can reflect back on the Buccaneers, but we'll mainly look forward. Want to talk a little bit about power rankings and rising players. One of the things that came out from ESPN yesterday. Jordan Reed on ESPN put out his first round mock draft. That's always interesting. So we can start getting into the mocks. I want to hit on the Atlanta Falcons pick, some of the things at the top. And we might go through that whole thing on Friday, Nick. That could be a good show for us on Friday. And then we'll hit on your questions. It's one of the reasons we do this thing live is because we love the interaction and all those type things. Robbie Red comes in. Now, I'm going to risk having this come back and blow up in my face here, and hopefully you guys can hear it okay. Robbie Red's given the old Mr. Kennedy from the WWE, and not everybody knows that one. But I actually turned this into a walk-up music for my son, Sean. I'm going to play that real quick. Let me know if you can hear this okay. There was a problem playing this video. Yeah, naturally. Mr. Kennedy, walk up. Why are you? I don't just play it. Okay, this was a bust. It played. I tested it right before I did this, and now it's not wanting to work. So here, let's see if this will work.
I could barely hear it in the background.
Yeah, so that didn't work very well, but that's all right.
Technical difficulties.
But I mixed it in with POD's boom. So Mr. Kennedy, boom, and it's over the top. But I might do it like when he's a senior in high school, have the PA guy do it. But good morning, Robbie Red. John Harrell comes in. He says, good morning, Scott and Falcons family. Good morning to you, too. And John's awfully excited. He says, Pitts looks healthy. Cordell Patterson is back. Landman for president. He's playing great. Ritter doesn't scare me throwing the ball. Yet the 3 turnovers, fumbles. One, not necessarily on him. It's kind of like a shortstop makes a bad throw and the first baseman picks it. He saved you an error. You'd like to think that maybe in a perfect world, he doesn't take that hit and gets rid of the ball a little quicker or whatnot, but that's still not on him. Bad snap. We don't know if that's on him or anything like that. The third one, absolutely 100% on him. Wrong hand, lackadaisical. He could go the rest of his career, Nick, and not lose 3 fumbles, not have 3 fumbles charged against him. So that's a little fluky. That said, the turnovers are piling up, and that's got to stop.
Yeah, I mean, the 3 turnovers is kind of fluky, but he's showing to be fumble prone right now, in the pocket or outside of structure. And with the way the offense is set up, you can't have that. It's very much a, chunk by chunk offense. I wouldn't say necessarily you're living with the massive, big time throws down the field constantly where you can have some of those turnovers. No, Ritter's got to protect the ball better, especially in the red zone. I mean, with the way the Falcons defense is playing right now, I know you want touchdowns in that red zone instead of field goals, but what you can't have is flipping turnovers. So that hopefully that'll get better here. Fortunately, it is something that, to the extent that we've seen from the Falcons over the recent stretch, is correctable. It is an anomaly to be that much, but I think we are approaching the is Ritter turnover prone area of his career, given the sample size we've seen. And it's not just the interceptions, it's fumbles. And honestly, I think I take interceptions over fumbles because at least interceptions to me most of the times means you're hunting and it's almost like an arm punt. The fumbles, those can go the wrong way in a hurry and flip field position in a worse way. I
feel like the fumbles are easier to correct than a guy putting the ball in danger.
True.
So if I see three interceptions, worries me more than 3 fumbles in a small sample size.
Yeah.
Now, Matt Ryann was giving the ball up, last year at a historic rate. And that leads to bigger problems. If this was all sack, fumble, strip, sack, fumble, okay, you got problems in a lot of areas. These were 3 different ways that the ball came out that I feel like those were a little fluky on that. Do you think he'll ever have the ball knocked out of his hand going untouched into the end zone again? No, I don't think that'll ever happen again.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't think. Will he get hit and fumble in the pocket? Probably. Will there be other snaps? But yeah, that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't be a big issue. Of course, it happened a couple of times last year with Dahlman at center. Didn't matter who the quarterback was. Jeremy Schneid coming in. He says, good morning, Falcons family. Good morning to you as well. John says, welcome back. Winston's coming in on Facebook. Winston Thornton says, good morning, fellas. Good morning to you. Keith Johnson says, good morning, guys. Always look forward to this podcast, and we look forward to having this podcast and speaking with you. Dom's in the house. He said, good morning to Nick, Scott, Falcons Nation, Dog Nation, and Broncos Country. Scott, you were right. Dogs play the Gators this weekend. Let's go, Dogs. Yeah, I don't keep track of college football nearly like I used to. It used to be my whole weekend. It was funny. I'd say, oh, what'd you do this weekend, Scott? Well, I watched the SEC games at noon, 3, 6, and 9. And then there's one I'd watch all 4 games. Like, wow, what did your wife say? I'm like, what do you mean, what did my wife say? I didn't have to ask permission, man. Like, if that was going to be a problem, we wouldn't be married. Those are the kind of things you figure out before you get married, man. She didn't say anything. She went and did her own thing. Hey, it's great. But now I don't follow it. And the thing is, Nick, I know so much more about the NFL now. Now I'm kind of into the NFL. I care about one of the reasons I didn't want to play fantasy football is because, man, I don't want to stay up and watch that Monday night game just to see if my wide receiver 3 loses a fumble and I lose by 0.5. Well, now I'm watching those games. So I'm much more into NFL, and I'll start following NFL draft here. Well, starting probably today, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I like them both. Big Ten football, Pac-12 football has been really fun this year. And, of course, the NFL. I mean, I'm on the draft. I've been watching tape. I watched 2 games of Oregon State's offensive line yesterday, getting ready to understand their right tackle, who's just a behemoth strength monster out there. So starting to put that work in, but love football all the way through.
College football started going away for me with 1, playoffs, and 2, and more importantly, my own kids playing sports. So, when Saturdays. You're gone all Saturday, you start missing things. All of a sudden, one weekend turns into 2. All of a sudden, you're week 6 of the game, and I haven't watched a single college football game. You'll see that one, Nick. Mm-hmm. Victor comes in, says, good morning, Scott and Nick. Hope you guys have a great show. Well, thank you, sir. It's better already. Michael Ranquillo coming in from Arizona. Appreciate you being here. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast. Chris Walker has something I think most of us can agree on here. He says, morning, everyone. Love our defense. If offensive side of the ball gets its act together and the play calling and execution get better and in sync, look out. Now, the Tennessee Titans are not a good team. However, they are coming off a bye. They are at home. This isn't what it looks like on paper. This could be a trap game, so to speak, for an Atlanta Falcons team that, in theory, should win this game.
I mean, in theory, they should win this game. Atlanta is not very good. Malik Willis is, talk about turnover prone, not being able to get through multiple reads. They're trading away their longest tenured player. They're falling apart, man. Their defense is bottom 10 in the NFL so far in efficiency metrics, 25th, giving up a 0.038 EPA per play on defense, which is not great. And the offense has probably even worse. That's a Mike Vrabel defense. So you're talking about a poor defense and offense out there in Tennessee. This is just not a very good team. I kind of feel a little bit bad with them, given the trades they've made. I mean, the Eagles, man, Howie Roseman's treating them like a minor league team right now, but probably one of the easier matchups we should see this season for this Falcons team.
Yeah, they're 14th in total run defense. What's their EPA? I'm wondering, in run defense. So sometimes these numbers can get skewed based on number of possessions. We've seen running teams want to dominate the clock. Fewer possessions means fewer yards. So you can have a team, it's like, oh, well, they were top 8 in offense. Yeah, but they gave up points every time the other team had the ball. They just went on 12 play, 8-minute drives. They weren't stopping anybody. They just weren't giving up a ton of yards. So they can be a little deceiving. It says, like 13th or 14th in total yards per game in rushing, but what's their efficiency metrics in stopping the run?
Their rush defense actually is pretty good. According to the efficiency metrics, it's ranked 11th in the NFL this year at a negative 0.142 per play. But their drop back, I mean, their pass game, they're getting eviscerated. 28th rated in the NFL. Only worse than them are the Bears, the Cardinals, the Chargers, and of course the Broncos.
So it sounds a little like, and you can look at the numbers, it sounds a little like this will be a lesser version of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who were pretty solid at stopping the run, but were giving up a lot of yardage through the air. And the Falcons really didn't have any problem moving the ball against them on the road in Tampa. So let me hear Tampa's numbers, and that's after, Desmond threw for 300 again on these guys.
Yeah, Tampa's 20th in dropback EPA and in rush EPA, they're second in
Yeah, so they're
the
good.
league.
Now, here's my next question for you, Nick. Who's number one? Who's
The
number
Atlanta
one in rush
Falcons.
defense?
The Atlanta Falcons are number one in rush defense by a
Wait, say it again for those in the back. Who's number one in rush defense?
Dirty Birds. Atlanta Falcons, number one rush defense in terms of efficiency metrics so far this season. So obviously there are a multitude of metrics you can look at, but the Falcons have been pretty damn good at keeping things in front of them so far this season. They're also number one in rush defense according to PFF so far this season in grade. They're 80.2 ahead of the Philadelphia Eagles at 78.1. So pretty phenomenal turnaround we've seen from this defense over the last few seasons.
Those are the metrics, and I call them seat of the pants analytics. What does your gut tell you? The gut tells you you're not running the ball on a front four of Calais Campbell, Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata, and Bud Dupree. And it's helping. Well, the Falcons aren't getting a lot of pressure. And I know there's pressures and the pressure rate but I feel like real pressure. They're not making the quarterbacks overly uncomfortable. And that's, again, those are, for me, what my eye tells me and what the numbers tell me. The numbers are saying they're getting pressures. My eyes are telling me when they rush four, the quarterback has a lot of time to throw. They're getting coverage sacks, which is good. However, because their rush defense is so strong with that front four full of grown men, and it is a veteran defense, that's their most mature area on the entire field is that front four. They're putting teams in second and long. They're putting teams in third and long, which lets you be a little more conservative, so to speak, in the passing game, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that when you're on schedule and ahead of the chains, as they like to say. You can do a lot more with your run game. Your playbook is open for you. So it makes it easier for the offense, harder on the defense. You really want to third and long, third and 12, especially when it's third and 15, the fans are in it, they're on the road, and you can pin your ears back and get after it. But the Falcons, pass rush is probably still the area that on this team is really lacking, even though the back seven has been playing good football. They've been playing good, sound, disciplined football in the run lanes and everything. But the pass rush is still not really making a difference. You don't have much true, that guy that's unbelievably a difference maker. Grady Jarrett's the closest to that and can be that from game to game, but not consistently.
Well, and he's taken up a lot of space is the thing. He's getting double teamed every single time in passing situations. Victor has a question here. Do you think it's possible that we don't have any major movement in the deadline because Fontenot wants to save cap space in case we need to go after a veteran quarterback in 2024 free agency? Or is that overthinking? Nick, why don't you take a shot at this? I've given it a little thought already, or I can go and you can give it some thought.
I think that you're looking at both, and part of the reason that you might hold back for something is because of potential cap space, but you have a very easy schedule ahead of you and a defense that is playing really good right now. And let me tell you, defense is super volatile. I mean, what we've seen so far from the Falcons probably is not going to be what they look like the second half of the season. It just fluctuates a lot. So if you have a chance to go for it, I think that you would. And also, I can't imagine anybody you bring on is going to be crazy in terms of the cap space ramifications. If you need to make some moves to bring in a quarterback, you still can. So I think you look at it right now and you see what you can get. And if you don't get it, it really just depends on a lot of the money factors and the cost of just bringing them in general.
Yeah, and I'm going to break this down into pieces, Victor. Do you think it's possible we don't have any major movement in the deadline? Yes. Yes, I do. Is it because Fontenot wants to save cap space in case they need to go after a veteran quarterback? No, that I do not think. I think there's plenty of cap space. I think there's flexibility to make more cap space. I think if they don't have any major movement, it's because they couldn't. The asking prices were too high because it's going to cost draft picks. So you're going to have to, man, we'd love to have, how do you pronounce Hunter's first name? I call him Danielle. Danielle?
I always thought it was Danielle.
Yeah. So, and someone said Danielle. I'm like, well, that probably makes more sense. So Hunter from Vikings. Oh yeah. Someone sent a second and a conditional 2025 third. That was too rich for our blood. Okay. If the price is there, but they need to be asking, they need to be on the phone. They need to find out because they could use someone who brings more to the edge rushing. That's the Achilles heel of this team right now. You're getting away with not being able to put pressure with your front four right now. A lot of it has to do with your schedule and the quarterbacks you've been playing. If you are going to make a run, This team finishes 11-6. They should be contenders in the playoffs. If you're going to do that, I don't think you can do it with Bud Dupree, Lorenzo Carter on their own. I think they're going to need somebody else. So if they do not make a move, I think it'll be because the price was too high.
No.
Not because they're thinking about saving cap space. It'll be because they want to save draft picks. That would be my thought. And here's my thought is trade that conditional fourth up there and see if from Jacksonville, send it up to Minnesota and see if they can turn that into a second round. Wouldn't that be nice? Calvin Ridley for Danielle Hunter for Hunter. Take that. Take that.
Yeah, I mean, heck, the way Washington's playing right now too, I wouldn't be putting my nose up at Chase Young. I mean, there's options out there to add another really interesting piece to the defense. I know with the trade deadline coming up, Scott, I do want to ask you, is there any spot on the offense where you could see a move that could impact the team this season? I know that a lot of the infrastructure seems to be in place, but is there any spot there that maybe? I know Van Jefferson's already here, but curious about your thoughts on the offense. Because
it'd be a wide receiver.
It'd be another wide receiver.
I think that's it. Unless someone comes in and offers something silly for Cordero Patterson. But again, I don't see that happening. The theme on ESPN's power rankings was it? No, it was a different one. Their theme this week was a rising young player. We can get into that one. And then one of the other things was a player that could be traded from each team. And there weren't a whole lot of good options for the Atlanta Falcons, frankly. They're an ascending team. They're playing well. There's not a lot of guys that they would look to move. They're not sellers. They came up with Scotty Miller. What are you going to get for Scotty Miller? Okay. Maybe, nothing. That's not really even a trade. I think more you would be buyers. Would you, I don't know if Cortland Sutton is the right guy for this team. Is he different enough from Mac Hollins to warrant giving something up? He's a really good player. He'd be a really good number 2 out there. But is there, I still feel like they're missing that that jitterbug guy out there, the yards after catch guy that gets separation, the press man beater off the line. That's where I think we would see a move. And Jordan Brown, good morning. He says the box scores have been alarming the last couple of games. Should have dominated. You have dominated. That's the problem. The scores have been alarming. The box scores, other than turnovers and score, have been really, really good. But back to trade. If it was on the offensive side of the ball, it'd be wide receiver.
Okay. I thought as much as well. And don't know if anybody's really available that would fit that mold for you guys, but makes sense. I mean, the area this team is missing, you could really use maybe like long-term another cornerback, but the immediacy drop in rotation makes sense. It's got to be edge.
And it says, did they trade? Did the safety come from Tennessee also, and they just traded another player up there? What, I mean, did we break that bond or something? And every Bear and Titan used to come to Atlanta. What's going on?
I think he's probably talking about the safety here. I didn't hear anything else about a linebacker. I think this is probably just talking about Kevin Byard still. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen any specifics on that.
Pamela John says, good morning, Scott. Nick, good morning to you. Hope you are having a great, crisp fall morning. Been waking up in the 40s here. This is the last 6 a.m. football practice for me for a while. So I won't miss those. Robbie Red comes back in on YouTube. He says, this Falcons team needs a consistent pass rusher. A Rashawn Gary or Montez Sweat would be a nice fit if they can make a trade or an offseason move. I saw he's got a decent following, and I follow him, so he's not always has takes this bad. But he's like, hey, if we're going after Danielle Hunter, I'd rather have Max Crosby. Well, you know what? I'd rather have reincarnation of Lawrence Taylor. It has about the same chance of happening. I'm like, come on, man. It shows me you're not paying attention to anything, and you have no idea how salary caps work if you think Max Crosby has a chance of coming to the Atlanta Falcons at the trade deadline. Come on. Yeah, I'd give up 2 first-rounders and maybe a third for Max Crosby, man. Come on.
Yeah, contract won't happen.
Yeah.
I don't know, though. I mean, you're calling, right? You're just seeing what's available out there. I see somebody asking about we need a Bosa type of dude off the edge. Haven't heard much from Joey Bosa and the Chargers for a number of years now. What's stopping the Falcons from calling in the least? I mean, you're a team that your first-round pick is probably not going to be good enough to get yourself a player of Joey Bosa's caliber. So why not see what it would take to do something like that without having looked at the contracts? I mean, it's kind of similarly to what we saw from the Miami Dolphins last season, the team that's built up infrastructure. They have a first round pick. They're going to be picking, mid to late first round. They're not going to be able to take a Bradley Chubb caliber edge rusher. They're not paying a quarterback yet. Maybe a good usage of that first round pick would be to go out there and get an immediate known commodity at that position, even if you have to end up paying that guy on top of it. It's a worthwhile discussion for where the Falcons are at as a team right now.
You mentioned Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa carries a $38 million dead cap hit this year, but his cap hit goes to $36 million next year for the Chargers against a 22 dead cap hit. That screams restructure or trade.
Interesting.
It says with a base salary of but a base salary and a roster bonus, a base salary of $15 million against a roster bonus of 22. He's available. He's movable. Let me say, I'm not saying the Chargers are making him available, but from the Chargers' point of view, Joey Bosa is movable after this year. Go ahead.
I have, I guess, some breaking news on this one too. I didn't see this yet, but I had it sent to me. Another reason for the Falcons to be licking their chops, I guess. Ian Rappaport tweets that sources, the Titans are preparing rookie quarterback Will Levis to start this Sunday. Ryan Tannehill's out with his ankle, and Coach Vrabel said both Levis and Malik Willis would play, but Levis is expected to be the primary quarterback. So Titans seem to be in pure evaluation mode. You might have to prepare for both quarterbacks in that regard, but turnovers might start to normalize a little bit this week if Desmond Ritter can protect the football.
Well, yeah, there you go. And, their run defense is okay. Their pass defense is not. Protect the ball, run it down their frickin' throats. Let them make a mistake. This will be similar to the game plan you saw against the Carolina Panthers to open the season. But I think the Falcons offense is in a much, much better place than it was against Carolina. Hold on to the damn ball and just like I said, just let them beat themselves and be efficient in your offense. I mentioned Max Crosby. Let me look up his numbers real quick because he's tied up for a while. He's got a $35 million dead cap next year, so he's not going anywhere for at least one more season, and then it goes to 27-10 in 2025. So he's tied up for a while. Again, you can't make those moves that would actually be a detriment to your team from a financial standpoint, especially with a good player. Now, if you're rebuilding and you need to rip the Band-Aid off, which is what we talked about with Matt, and I'm not saying Matt Ryan wasn't a good player, but he wasn't going anywhere. They needed to get out from under that contract. Bubba Gump says, good morning. Good morning to you as well. Cutlo comes in. Cuto Butler. It feels like a newer name. Welcome in, my friend. He says, easy win this week. You'd think.
It's the NFL, baby.
But it's the NFL. I mean, the Bills were going to go in and wax the Patriots, right? Wrong. There was another one. What was the other game this week that was like, what?
Tyson Bagent and the Bears beat on the Raiders. That was shocking. You had the Giants beat the Commanders.
I think that was it for me.
There was another one, too. I
expected the Commanders to beat the Giants pretty handily.
Yeah.
I expected the Colts to beat the hell out of the Browns to beat the hell out of the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
I actually picked the Lions and the Ravens. Oops. I think that was the surprise for me. How about Vikings 49ers?
Oh, yep. Another one there. So, I mean, it's the NFL, man.
Yeah.
This is a tough league. It's not like college football where, you have Alabama going against Vanderbilt one week. And it's like, you could play that game 100 times and Vanderbilt would maybe win once. NFL, the margins are so small and thin. So any win in the NFL is a good one. I'll never forget. I mean, God, how things change, but I think it was 2013 or 2014 and the Broncos are up like 7 or 14 points against, I want to say the Jags going into halftime, and the Broncos fans are booing the Broncos because they were like crazy favorites, and God, how karma has changed. I mean, a 14-point lead at half, you can do that? I didn't even know that was allowed these days.
The Broncos haven't had trouble getting leads at halftime. They've had trouble keeping them.
Yeah.
But they did break
14 points, though.
Falcons fans, just a crazy stat. The Broncos lost 10 games in a row that they had a lead at halftime. They needed Mark Wohlers to come in and close that thing down, get Billy Wagner to come in. and close. And Sean says Ritter still scares me. Yeah, we're not saying it's done with Desmond Ritter. He's turned the ball over 6 times in 2 games. It's very, very concerning. Like I said, though, I don't feel as bad about those fumbles. Those were fluky to me. Now you happen fluky 2 times in a row, they become a trend. Atlanta Dog 88 says, "Good morning, Scott and Nick. Rise up. Let's get a dub this Sunday." Keith Robbins is in as well. He says, "Good morning." Brandon Swank says, "This should be a win. Tennessee are trying to trade more players for picks. Should be, but you get a road game coming off a bye, guys fighting for jobs. It's the NFL. It should be." And what's interesting is ESPN Gamecast has 55% chance of Tennessee winning this game. The Falcons are a 3-point favorite. I'm like, did you not mess it? It's the matchup predictor says Tennessee Titans 54.4 versus 45% for the Atlanta Falcons. And that's with Ryan Tannehill questionable and just Bijan Robinson listed as questionable on the team. I'd take some of that action. I'd bet 45 to win 55. I'd take some of that action. I don't bet on the Falcons unless it's to bet against them to hedge my bets. I wish I had put $1,000 down in 2016 on the Super Bowl. I would have paid $1,000 to not have to deal with that for the rest of my life. Would have been worth $1,000 easy. Brad Clark, good day. Top 5 defense and efficiency. Loving our defense. If you're just joining us as they come in, Nick, where's that run defense efficiency for the Atlanta Falcons based on PFF and DVOA?
EPA per play, they're number 1, and PFF, they are number 1. I have not seen the DVOA. That Football Outsiders fell apart, so I need to figure out where that's being stored these days. I think it might be behind another subscription, so I might have to bother Chad. Like, Chad, I need the data, of course. How else can I discuss this? The run defense has been really good, and I mean, you got to give a shout out to the defensive front, the defensive coordinator. You're losing like Troy Anderson out there, Nate Landman. I saw somebody say Nate Landman for president. Limited player, but man, he is you funnel it to him and he's taking care of it between the tackles. So really been a very good defense out there. Hopefully they can start hunting the quarterback a little bit better than they have been.
Rusty Moore says, "What's up with the Bijan Robinson investigation thing? What is there to investigate? He started feeling sick before the game and then had a very limited role. Because the NFL is in bed with Vegas now, they have to kiss their ass. The NFL should never have promoted gambling." This has been going on for a lot longer than the NFL and Vegas officially being in bed. That's why they have the reports. That's why they have the injury reports, is for this reason. And if you hide something, and the question is, the investigation is, when did you know? That's it. And if they knew on Sunday morning, so be it. No problem. They left him active. He played a game. So, I mean, he played in the game. You could have just said, "Hey, listen, we didn't play him." But they said he wasn't feeling great. We decided to, what didn't help is Arthur Smith is acting so coy about it. Arthur Smith is up there talking like he has something to hide. And the cover up is always worse than the story. So that's why it's getting questions. And I even put it in the title that on Monday, I put up the cut up of his video up there. It's on my YouTube page of, I forgot exactly what I put, but I hinted that he's still not forthright about what's going on. And that's causing problems because the injury reports and why they are put out every single day of the week, starting with Wednesdays, has been going on for decades. And they take that stuff seriously, even if gambling was illegal.
And it's definitely a bigger deal now that there's gambling, and gambling is paying for like huge sponsorship and stuff. I mean, you can have the opinion that it's sullied the sport some or, whatever, but I don't personally gamble really on that. I'd have to drive out to a casino out here in Seattle to do that on reservation land based on state law. So I'm not out here doing that, but this is where the league is at. So it's part of the game. I really think that soon they're going to be coming for things like the refs as well, because the margins are so thin. You have like bad calls here and there that are costing Vegas money. Refs better watch their back because you do not mess with the mafia and the bookies.
Well, again, the ironic thing about Vegas and gambling is Vegas doesn't want to gamble.
Nope.
So if they have money on 50% on each side, they're happy. They really don't care who wins. We get the percentage. We want volume. Mm-hmm. We want as many people gambling as possible. We want half on this side, and we'll take our 5%. That's what they're interested in. When it comes to sports gambling, when it comes to gaming, the odds are all on the house. Those on a long enough timeline, the house is always going to win. Let me see here. John has a question for you. So, what was the call with the Iowa fair catch BS?
I guess it was, you can debate either way. He kind of was pointing at the ball with one hand, and when he was running, waving the hand at his waist on the other end, and caught it, made one of the most miraculous punt returns you'll ever see. 90 seconds, zooped around like 6 guys at once. I mean, it was pretty unbelievable. They reviewed it to see if he stepped out of bounds, and then in the review process, they're like, oh, his arm is kind of waving. Illegal fair catch. We're going to call that back. And I've never seen that before. Didn't impact the play at all. Nobody on the sideline was going nuts about it. It was right in front of the Minnesota sideline. They just looked like they got beat, and it was a bizarre call to make after the fact. The only reason it was reviewed is because he scored. So if he went down on the 1, it never would have been reviewed. He wasn't that close to out of bounds, which is what they were reviewing for. Absolutely bizarre. It's one of those things where if it is by the letter of the law, I think they need to change it where that's not a.
It wasn't. It was the letter of the law is basically it has to come over your head for the fair catch, and it has to go back and forth across your shoulders to call it. His fair catch, if you hadn't seen this, and this guy will be in the draft, so you'll see it again. He'll be a very high pick as a defensive back, so I'm sure you'll see this again. He started by running, pointing at the ball, like, hey guys, look at, if you're blocking, you guys, look at me, it's over here. And then he started pushing with his hand. Get away from it. Get away from it. Get away from it. And then he went and picked it up and scored. They're very clear about signal fair catch, over your head, back and forth. Boom, boom, boom. It wasn't that at all. It was ridiculous. It was a crap call. And like I said, I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't care. And even if it's my team, I will say what I think is right and what I think is wrong. And that was wrong.
It just shouldn't have been reviewable. I mean, that's the biggest thing. If they called it dead on the field, yeah, that sucks. But then to do it after he scored a touchdown, the only reason it was reviewable is because he scored a touchdown. Also, looking at anything.
That's not true, though. They review every play in college football.
Okay, I think it.
No, they review every play in college football. That's why it takes so freaking long. That's why that's why the games take so long.
All right, I listened to some of the Big Ten answering it, and the refs mentioned that on the conference call.
No, that's not right. They may have had more time to review it, but you review every call.
Yeah, it was bizarre. I think it's something that just shouldn't have been reviewable. Like the stepping out, that should be reviewable. But if it's on the field, this, especially when you're looking at something like that in slow motion, and they said that they were able to confirm it from a aerial view, which nobody had an aerial view. It's like I don't even know if the refs on the field had an aerial view. But then after the conference, if you look at this one in slow motion, it's kind of ambiguous.
Yeah, from over the top, because I have no view of vertical. I can only see horizontal. Now I can't tell if it's coming over. Yeah,
if they take 30 minutes,
ridiculous.
If they take 30 minutes on a weekday to go over a call, odds are there's something either wrong with the rule or it was a bad call.
It was a bad call, and I've said forever and ever and ever and ever. I say it every week. 20 seconds, man. You get 20 seconds to review a call. Otherwise, play ball. But they review every call. That's why a 1st and goal from the 3 takes 30 minutes. If you're just trying to push the ball straight ahead into the end zone, because they review the spot every single time. Did he, it's a scrum. Yeah, it's inconclusive. Okay, let's do it again. And then they review. Oh, God, it's maddening. But every call, every play is reviewed, and then they'll stop it. It's the NFL where they review a scoring play. Anthony says, who would you rather face, Malik Willis or Will Levis, if you're the Atlanta Falcons?
Give me both. God, I think it's going to be a combination of both, too. I think that's probably even better for the Falcons because those guys aren't going to be able to have a chance to really hit their rhythm. And I feel like they're going to be pressing a little bit with each of their reps, also trying to make something happen. This is my chance. I better, I only have 15 dropbacks in this game. I need to go out there and make a play. Even though you have to prepare for both, it's not like they are dramatically different in terms of, keep them in the pocket, don't let them escape. Give them some eye candy up front, confuse them with coverages. So I think that give me both. I think that's the one that I want to play is both together.
I'd rather see Will Levis first start, really first action. And Malik Willis can hurt you with his legs in the running game, where Will Levis, no matter who he might be, I don't think he's going to be there yet. So I'd rather face the rookie passer making his first than Malik Willis, the dual threat guy who can create a little bit on his own. But we'll see. We'll see. The Falcons should be the better team and just take care of business. Robbie Red taking care of some business for us, coming in with a super chat. And just a reminder, like Robbie, the best way to directly support the show and the things that Nick and I do is with super chats like this or stars on Facebook. Robbie Red says, love the live streams. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. Thank you, my friend. Big help to us. Coming down a little bit, who will catch the Sean Stassi comes in. Who will catch the most passes from Will Levis? My answer, Jesse Bates. You might be right. 2 might do it. 2 might win this thing, unless he's dumping them off to the backs for sure.
Yeah, I mean, turnovers galore. We'll see. Hopefully Desmond Ritter can protect the football. This is a game where you really come in and be like, Ritter, you don't have to do too much here, man. Just protect the damn ball. Even if you're playing field position sometimes, Willis/Levis are probably going to turn the ball over. So just play smart football.
Anthony Evans says, I like the way Nielsen has changed the culture in Atlanta, has them boys playing ball. I'm not going to give him the credit for that one, though. I think this has been instilled from the second he walked through the door with Arthur Smith. And, holy cow, this is what happens when you get old. You can't remember what happened last year. What's the defensive coordinator's name?
Dean Pease.
Thank you. Dean Pease. I was like, I can remember my first grade teacher and like 9 out of 10 of my classmates, but I can't remember who I worked with a year ago. It's just harder to get long-term memories. The hard drive's full. Dean Pease talked about last year about changing the daggum culture in this place. And Arthur Smith has done that. They wouldn't let him say, rebuild. Wouldn't let him use a word. No excuses. They had huge excuses for that team not being good. They wouldn't have it. You weren't allowed to say it. You weren't allowed to ask them questions about it. And that's part of the culture. And it was one of the reasons why they were so successful in recruiting free agents this year. Calais Campbell. I mentioned, what was your favorite move in the offseason, Scott? Calais Campbell to me was a statement signing. This was a signing that comes in and says, this team's headed in the right direction. I'm a veteran who could go one more year with just about anybody in the NFL. I want to come here. I want to come be a part of this. That was a good thing. Now, the next step for that, Nick, is them making a move before the trade deadline that says we're adding to this team. We're going for it. That's an Atlanta Braves move. That's not necessarily been an Atlanta Falcons move, and it's harder to make moves in the NFL than it is baseball, for sure.
Yeah,
but
especially in the trade deadline.
If there's not an absurd price, and it would have to be an upgrade because there's some good professionals at edge here, I'd like to see him make a move. I'd like to see him go for this thing.
Yeah, I mean, the division will probably never be easier. You'll probably never have a better constructed cap-wise defense with the Desmond Ritter contract and stuff going on, and guys staying, knock on wood here, relatively healthy on that side of the ball. You go out there and you get another one of those guys, that'd be great. I am curious, Scott, any thoughts about cornerback as well? We've been talking edge. Have you been impressed enough with, your cornerbacks play opposite of Terrell out there that you wouldn't bring somebody in? Or is that an area too where if we can get, 5% better, that could make the difference down the stretch?
I feel pretty good about Jeff Okudah and D. Alford in those spots. Who am I missing after that? Mike Hughes has been, I don't know that he's been having to play a whole lot. Let me see how many snaps he got, but I feel pretty good about the depth there. Could you do something for safety? I thought Richie Grant has really started playing better. He had a big play, but I think Richie and Jesse Bates, in fact, you cut a safety. When you start getting rid of a guy who started 16 games for you last year, I think you're feeling pretty good about your safety position. Mm-hmm. Let me see how many snaps those guys had against Tampa.
I want to hit this data perspective. You're 15th in the league in coverage grade per PFF, which is solid. But maybe an area that if it takes just like a 6th-round pick, I don't know. That's an area that maybe you could see somebody coming in here still. But I agree with you. It's probably edge or bust. But if you can get even just a little bit better and it doesn't cost that much, then maybe that's something to consider.
Yeah, right now it's D. Alford in the slot who got 55 snaps. AJ Terrell got 73. He played every snap. Jeff Okudah played 69. He got a 50 grade and Terrell. And the thing is, on those grades, Terrell got a 48.4. Those guys got shillelagh'd by PFF this week. I don't know that it was that bad, for goodness sakes. And then Mike Hughes had just a couple of snaps. So right now they're playing 3, and I feel pretty good. I love the way D. Alford plays the game. I absolutely love it. So I think they're okay right there, assuming injuries stay good, and then you got to figure something out.
They've really hated Trey Flowers on PFF. He's 49.1 grade, almost 178 snaps. Maybe that's an area where 7th round pick, you bring in another safety cornerback hybrid body type there, but I mean, it's edge.
Yeah, and he was playing. Jeff Okudah replaced him, and Jeff Okudah's been playing pretty well. And Gianni asked a question: if they do bring in a top defensive end, whose snaps start to get reduced or possibly cut, which is a good question as well. You see Lorenzo Carter, you see Arnold Ebiketie, you see Bud Dupree. Those are the 3 guys that are mostly starting at edge or getting snaps at edge, but there's not a ton of them. Bud Dupree gets the most there. Lorenzo Carter had 23 snaps. Ebiketie had 31 snaps. And then it says, and then I don't even see anybody else after that.
Zach Harrison,
Calais Campbell. Those are defensive linemen. So they're playing really a 4-man front with those guys rotating into the 3 spots. So who would come out?
Probably Carter
or Ebiketie. Ebiketie hasn't done a whole lot, either, but it would be Carter. Depends on who it is. If it's a pure pass rusher, it's Carter and Ebiketie. If it's an alpha, a legit big time who's better than all of them, all of their snaps go down. Dupree, Ebiketie, and Carter, because they're only playing one guy in those spots. They're not bringing up. They're not playing a 3-man front with 2 edges. They're playing a 4-man front with a stand-up outside linebacker defensive end, which is one guy. That's one position. They've only got 3. They've got 3 players for that one position right now, for the most part. Now there's different packages and stuff, but their base is 3 down linemen with Dupree, Ebiketie, or Carter coming off the right side.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, if you can go get that guy and it doesn't cost you a future first, I think it's something you got to consider right now, because you got a chance to go for it in this division. We got Smitty's Sports Machine saying, good morning, Scott and Nick. Will the Broncos be sellers at the trade deadline? Who do you see getting moved? I think the Broncos are answering the phone, but I don't think we're getting rid of people no matter what. I mean, we kind of saw the safety market with Kevin Byard, a 5th and a 6th. Now, granted, the Eagles did eat a huge amount of salary cap on that one, but I think the Broncos, if they can't get a 3rd round pick, 4th round pick plus for Simmons and somebody eating that contract, they probably just hold on to him because of the void. It's going to be harder to replace him, and you got means to still create cap next year. I am keeping an ear out. It does seem like there's a little bit of buzz for linebacker being moved from Denver to create a spot for Drew Sanders to get some more reps out there. Could be Jewell, could be Singleton as well, but that's an area that I'm at least listening for right now, beyond the wide receivers as well.
Yeah, again, if it's Jeudy, are they going to be sellers? They don't have to be sellers. You'd have to give them something worthwhile. And I don't know that they've got too many guys that can actually do that. There's another question here, and we talked about this at the beginning of the year. Troy coming in, he's like, any chance that the Broncos would trade Russell Wilson and or Jeudy to the Falcons for a 7th round pick? If the Broncos picked up Wilson's salary, would that help both teams? The 7th round pick, again, I don't know that the Falcons right now would be in the market for Russell Wilson. Would he be an upgrade? Probably right now. I don't know how much that would help, how much Russell Wilson would help. That would help the Denver Broncos is what I'm trying to spit out, because what you're looking for is salary cap relief, and his salary for 2023 is only $8 million. His salary for 2024 is only $17 million. So the Broncos are at least looking for somebody to pick up that. And, week 2 or 3, I said I'd be interested in $17 million and a 4th round pick for Russell Wilson and this team. I would consider it. Now, I don't know. I think you're ready. You've seen enough from Desmond Ritter. I don't want to give up picks for, that guy. I'd just as soon finish this season and then reevaluate in the off season for somebody like that, Nick. And as far as Jerry Jeudy goes, Jerry Jeudy might fit in better on a team like the Atlanta Falcons, where he's not in the spotlight. He's not considered the first round pick. He's not considered, when are you going to step up and be the number one? He could drop into this offense and be a number 3 behind Kyle Pitts and Drake London, behind Bijan Robinson as far as the star power goes and the expectations. And I think that's where he would thrive, because I don't know if he's got the mental toughness to be a number 1 in this league. That sounds familiar, Falcons fans, doesn't it? Remind us of anybody?
He'd be very good for a man beater in the defense. If you're playing man and you get that look pre-snap, Jerry Jeudy is going to be able to cook a guy in man coverage, especially from the slot. It's the zone and the contested catch areas where we have some issues with him. But, I would love a team that's already pretty explosive from the offensive front to make a move for Jerry Jeudy. Can you imagine adding him to, say, the Miami Dolphins? Just adding him to the mix there with...
It's overkill for me.
See, I believe that even though there's only one ball to go around, my years in the Peyton Manning offense kind of warped my brain. But if you make it so you have a matchup-proof offense where, no matter where you go, you can't do anything about it, especially with injuries and whatnot, that's a way to go. Was it overkill for the Broncos to bring in Wes Welker after they already had Eric Decker, Demaryius Thomas, Julius Thomas, Noshawn Marino? I don't think so. I think adding to a strength is just as viable of a team-building strategy as it is trying to fortify weaknesses, personally.
Yeah, and I think Jerry Jeudy would be a good pickup for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
Again, the questions you have about Jerry Jeudy, I think he needs a stronger foundation than what he's had in Denver in his career there, with multiple offensive coordinators, multiple head coaches, the first round draft pick. He needs somebody to just, sit down, do your job, and shut up, or you're just going to sit on the bench. And that's what he would get with the Atlanta Falcons. Mitch comes in. He says, "Rise up, fellas. Love the show." Thank you, sir. Ritter's production has been great the last couple of weeks. The turnovers will get cleaned up. You'd think, but you start looking at turnovers. No turnovers against Carolina. That's why you won that game. 1, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3. Man, that's crazy. That's an insane amount of turnovers. It has to get cleaned up. Dominic coming in with some stars on Facebook. Thank you, sir. He says, "Good morning, Scott and Nick. Chiming in from Utah." Well, good morning out there. If we pick up Hunter, do you think we exceed 40 sacks this year? Nick, what do you think?
Do we get to include the ones that Hunter already had this year as part of the total? I think it's possible, especially, again, I think this Falcons team, the turnovers that we've seen specifically in the red zone are not likely to be continuously replicated. That's probably something that you're going to see regression here, which means you're going to be playing with a lead more often, I believe, coming forward. The schedule really lightens up. You've already gotten through the Jags and the Lions. Just reading through it, it feels like a Big Ten West gauntlet out there for the Falcons coming up here. So I think it's possible if you add another difference maker and the offensive turnovers and red zone offense normalizes some, that the 40 sack mark could be eclipsed.
My initial reaction was hell no. But they've got 8 sacks in the last 2 weeks. A lot of those are coverage sacks without beating the guy in front of you and putting pressure on. You just flat out what I think of as a sack. There's been pocket collapsing, effort moves, Grady Jarrett finally gets through, et cetera, pursuit sacks, those type of things. But with those 8 in the last 2 weeks, now obviously you have 3 sacks a game, you're going to get to 40. They've averaged 4 in the last 2 weeks. Through 7 games, they've got 13. That's almost 2 a game. 2 times 17 games is 34. Okay, well, you're almost there. But you need 27 sacks in 10 games, so you need to go from 2 to 3, a 50% increase in sacks. Maybe. It's not out of the question. So maybe. Do I think the Falcons exceed 40 sacks with Danielle Hunter? And thank you, everybody, Danielle Hunter.
Danielle,
which makes more sense. No, but it's not nearly as out of the question as I originally thought when the question was asked. It's certainly a possibility. And for a team that has 39 sacks combined the last 2 years, man, 40 would be sweet. 40 would be really sweet. So great question, and thank you. Thank you for this. Thank you for the stars, Dom. Certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate it.
Let me see here. I want to scroll down here and see if we can get some folks. I saw Ryan come back in. We haven't talked to Ryan yet today. And Ryan says we're being way too hard on Ritter. First year truly playing and putting up the best run pass performance by any Falcons quarterback in Tampa ever. Yeah, I think we said at the beginning when he wasn't playing very well, are you ready to pull the plug? And it was kind of a loaded question. I knew the answer, what he was going to say, what Nick was going to say. I'm like, no, hell no. It's too soon. It's way too soon. Plays really well against it wasn't his turnovers. I think there were fumbles that cost that game, and he played pretty well against the Commanders. We're like, oh, is he in it now? Are you ready to say this is the guy? No, I'm not. I'm not.
Not too high,
Am I willing to give this man the year? Has he shown enough that I'm willing to say, okay, I want to see what he can do over the course of this season, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, we are still waiting to see and gathering data on him. He's playing better so far. I do think, though, that I would assume that Arthur Smith is probably being pretty hard on Ritter, too, in terms of the turnovers. A lot of things you can deal with, the slow process, getting out the first read, pocket manipulation, blah, blah, blah. Rule number 1, protect the goddamn football, especially in the red zone. So I'm not by any means saying he's not the guy. I'm not saying that he should be benched. Far from it. I think I'm feeling as confident he potentially could be the guy as I have in his entire career to date. But it's a very correctable thing. Protect the damn football. You cannot take points off the board. The margins are too small in the league. You're not going to have many games where you can give up, I think it was 14.3 expected points in this Buccaneers game that were given up due to where the fumbles occurred. That's just, you can't have that in the NFL from your quarterback. So learning experience without a doubt, but very confident with how he's playing. Just got to correct the turnovers there, the fumbles specifically.
Leonard Smith says, good morning, fellas. Feels good to be on top of the division. Absolutely. It would feel good to have 2 games over 500 too, wouldn't it? Go in 5-3. And I don't remember at the beginning of the year, I may have penciled this one in as a loss on the road. Now I've changed it. This should be a win. I'm afraid to call it. I think whatever I've called has been wrong for the Atlanta Falcons so far this year. Like I don't do well with teams that I cover. You're too close to the situation. I need distance. I need my robotic ability to be unemotional when I'm picking games. The one I did pick though was take the under. The under on that one felt pretty good. Appreciate you being here, Leonard. Jason B says D'Angelo Malone will probably get released. I don't know. He was a 3rd-round pick. I don't think they're going to give up on him 18 months into his into what he's been doing, into his contract, into his tenure. He's been really good on special teams. That said, you're not getting what you want out of him so far from a 3rd-round pick. And that's if you were to get Danielle Hunter. That was what he was talking about. If you go get another edge, who's the odd man out? Malone, maybe. His playing time wouldn't get eaten into because he's not playing. And part of that has been the scheme change. You're not putting 2 edges on the field. You're only putting 1, which could be what you then speak of. If he were to get released, he'd get picked up. You wouldn't be able to sneak him back onto the practice squad. Pamela Johnson says, I'm confident going to Tennessee with our defense. I'm waiting for the offense to go off. With that defense, what's a phrase we like to say about the defense? It travels, Nick. The defense travels.
It does. Unfortunately, it became pretty volatile. I'd say like front 7 or the defensive lines travel. Back 7 can be a little bit volatile, but run defense, that's something that should play you pretty darn well in the postseason. I mean, you talk about a team that, the ground starts to get a little bit frosty. The pass game's not as slick or as clear or easy to execute. And you need to pick up, oh my gosh, we ran the ball on 1st down and now it's 2nd and 9. That's something that on specifically second half of the season, playoffs going on the road could really make the Falcons a tough out if we see this trend continue. So I'm excited, man. This is a team that we're at time right now, and I see Tana coming in saying 21-3, but just kind of a vibe check here, Scott. Expectations to prior to the start of the season, meets, needs, exceeds. Where are we at?
Defense has exceeded. The offense has not met. So I think that balances out. So I think we're on schedule for that 10-7, 11-6 preseason prediction that we talked about. I think we're on schedule. If the offense starts clicking, and that could start happening this weekend, if the offense starts playing mistake-free football, it's a big ask when you're giving the ball away 3 times a game. It would be exceeding on both sides of the ball. This could be a 12-5 team, or they keep giving it away. You can end up 9-8. You can get beat by anybody when you're not Washington Commanders, when you're not taking care of the ball. But the defense is so far ahead of my expectations. This is a contending caliber defense, Nick. It really is.
And what's really interesting about this, and I mean, maybe this is an off-season discussion as well, but we've been doing the show long enough and covering the Falcons long enough, and the draft specifically. Falcons haven't used premium draft capital on the defense, even though we've been, talking about it for a bit. And you see this massive turnaround here. It really just, I think, goes to show how volatile and how quickly a defense can turn over in the NFL. I mean, just 2 years ago, obviously you didn't have the cap space to add to it, but this was one of the worst 3 defenses in football. And now we're talking about them top 10, I think, pretty securely here.
Just goes to show you what you can do with $100 million in a good scouting department and a good environment. And like I said, I think the culture and the environment plays into this.
Absolutely.
Being able to sign David Onyemata, bringing in Caden Ellis, who I saw go inside, and then the scouting, bringing in Nate Landeman and playing well like that. But the guys, and we've said it before, I know you have said it a lot on other shows, Nick, the guys that you've brought in have hit. There hasn't been a lot of big misses in some of the big. Jesse Bates, worth it. David Onyemata, worth it. Bud Dupree, worth it. Caden Ellis, worth it. There's 4. Jeff Okudah, there's 5. There's 5 new starters on your defense right there. And I'm probably forgetting Calais Campbell, 6. So the fact that this defense has come together so quickly is a testament to the scouting of both the players and the personalities and how they can mesh together. And Ryan Nielsen as defensive coordinator and overall culture change of the Atlanta Falcons. It's been fun. Yeah. It's been fun to watch.
I'm with you 100% on that. And the money matters, but didn't have to be premium draft picks for that to get this turnaround. Now, granted, what's the ceiling of the defense without that, alpha guy up front that, it's 3rd and 10 and you need that pressure? I don't know if you have that guy right now, but it's going to be interesting. We got Levon Porter coming in saying, happy birthday to me. Rise up. Happy birthday to you, Levon. Everybody in the chat, make sure you give Levon a happy birthday wish and hope you have a great day, buddy.
Yeah, happy birthday. Thanks for spending some time with us. Nando comes in. Mr. Barrington says, can we run the table scoring 16.4 points per game? No, cannot. Cannot run the table giving the ball away 3 times a game. Those are connected right there. Instead of, 16-13 the final, I think I was mixing up my games as I was titling this on Monday. I think the final was 16-13. And as Nick just said, you gave up at least 14 points. It should have been 30. It should have been a 3-score game last week. So no, you cannot win giving the ball away 2.5 times a game. And that contributes directly to just the 16.4. That's how I feel on that. On that note, we are going to get out of here. Go ahead, Nick. Real
quick, the 16.4 points per game. Right now in the NFL, we have some of the lowest points per game we've seen. This is tied for the lowest points per game we've seen since 2009 right now. So defense is definitely playing good. The 16.4 is not good enough. Your average points per game right now, I just had it somewhere, is 21.7. So 16.4 won't get it done. But in general, what the expectation should be for points, maybe put it down a peg or so, just because scoring is down across the entire league right now.
I want to answer this one real quick before we get going, and then we'll go. We started a little late. We'll go just a little late. Any reason why we can't be serious contenders if we sort out our red zone woes? Matt, I think the answer for me comes to the lack of pass rush. I don't think the defense can play at the same level that it does and that it has been if it starts playing some of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. You start playing, if San Francisco, let's look at the AFC, the NFC. San Francisco, they're in a little bit of a slump, lost 2 in a row. Philadelphia Eagles, I think the Dallas Cowboys are, and I'm just sorting by points scored on offense right now. Dallas Cowboys would give you trouble. Detroit Lions gave you trouble. And then you go down in points per game in the next NFC team. The Seattle Seahawks, Geno Smith is a pretty good quarterback. Chicago Bears. The reason why you would have some better luck is because the NFC is weak. If I said you were fourth, if you were the fourth team in the NFC, would you consider it a serious contender if you knew you had to beat the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles on back-to-back weeks? I think that's a big stretch right now, possible, but I think that's a little bit of a stretch unless I can get, and again, you're assuming that you're getting your offense straightened out. That's a big assumption, one. Mm-hmm. But two, I think this defense is not going to stay at this level against the better offenses, and you're not going to see one this week either when they can't get pressure with their front four. That's my feeling on the ceiling for this team this year.
For me, it's still, I think, I'm not saying that I'm out on Desmond Ritter, but until I see him in the situations where, it's the pure, I know he's had that crazy comeback so far this season, but it hasn't been the insane drop back pass game that sometimes you need, like that one drive where it's obvious you are passing the football and he's hitting big time throws in high leverage situations. Until I see that over a large enough sample size, even if the pass rush isn't getting there, I don't know if I can trust Ritter in those situations. That's something where before I'm comfortable with that guy, I need to see it a lot. So that's the big one for me. Why can't they be a serious contender if you're, are you going to go toe to toe?
But he was assuming, like, again, if your offense, like I said, that's a big assumption. So we took that off the table. The offense gets it going. What's holding this team back? For me, it's still the pass rush, Nick.
Yeah, okay, I agree. I took more of the serious contender. Okay, if you're going blow for blow against Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts,
I don't know the offense is ready to do that. Period. And that was an assumption we made.
Yeah,
so I agree. I agree with your overall point.
Yeah, we still have to find out about Desmond Ritter and the functionality of the drop back pass game when you have to go out there and move the ball and score points. So far, the games you've had, it's trending in the right direction to win football games. It's correctable stuff too that's holding them back. But that next level to serious contender,
right?
That we got to find out more about the quarterback still.
So I'm hoping that you might see a Billy Bean in Moneyball coming up next week. Get on the phone with the Vikings. Say, send them on over here. I don't want them playing against us this Sunday. Danielle Hunter, because they play the Vikings the next game after the trade deadline. Hello, you're already in town. Send them over to our locker room. I don't want them playing against us this week.
Do it at halftime. Make them switch jerseys like on the field.
Well, it's the fifth. It's the fifth. So they would the trade deadline would be over. But the next team they play is the Vikings. On that one. On that note, we're going to get out of here, y'all. I want to say a special thank you to Robbie Red, who came in with a super chat, and Dominic Archuleta, who came in with Facebook stars. Thank you for the support. It means a lot to us. Nick and I will be back. We're going to talk. I think that's what I want to do. I want to talk about on Friday, Nick, is the mock draft that has come out. We'll go through that on Friday. Same channels and everything, 9:00. It will be all NFL, not just Falcons, not just Broncos, not just et cetera, but we will keep going as we start hitting mock draft time because it's almost November, trade deadline. There's some teams that are out of this. Luckily for Falcons fans we started talking about mock drafts in August. That's not the case anymore. We're now starting to knock on the door of, hey, how serious can this team be? What's the ceiling? It's much more fun that way. It is. So we certainly appreciate y'all being here. Hope to see you on Friday. If you're new here and if you're not, leave a like, subscribe, and share. It means a lot to us. Nick, any last words, and then we'll take off.
Yeah, man. I think you guys should really appreciate what the Falcons have done here over the last few seasons. Enjoy the ability to right now to play competitive football. And as Scott said, the Falcons. I mean, you guys pretty much have been hit so hard on free agency this year. Don't overlook it or underappreciate it because, I mean, the fact that you go out there and hit 6 moves on the defensive side of the ball and almost every single one of them is at or above expectations is an oddity. I mean, think about that kind of like the draft where, I mean, imagine hitting 6 of your draft picks and they're hitting above expectation. I mean, that's why you're seeing the big turnaround right now. And it could be a pretty fun season. Don't get too frustrated in the losses here that are probably going to come at some point, the unexpected ones, because still a young team that's learning. But this Falcons team is feisty, and they're right in it. I'm really excited to cover a team that actually is playing meaningful football, which they're setting up for here down the stretch.
Yeah, it should be a full game. It's a game the Falcons need to win if they're going to be the team that we're talking about. They need to go to Tennessee and beat a team that is looking to next year.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if they can do that. Move to 5-3, about through the halfway point, right on schedule. So on that note, we're out of here. Thanks for joining us. I hope y'all enjoy the rest of your gorgeous Southern Wednesday afternoon, and we'll see you on Friday.
Peace.